Hello, and welcome to this reading of Book 22 of Emily Wilson's translation of Homer's Odyssey, a book which she doesn't really cryptically title. It's pretty blunt, and we really know what's coming: bloodshed. Odysseus ripped off his rags. Now naked, he leapt upon the threshold with his bow and quiverful of arrows, which he tipped out in a rush before his feet, and spoke, "Playtime is over. I will shoot again towards another mark no man has hit. Apollo, may I manage it." He aimed his deadly arrow at Antinous. The young man sat there, just about to lift his golden goblet, swirling wine around, ready to drink. He had no thought of death. How could he? Who would think a single man among so many banqueters would dare to risk dark death, however strong he was? Odysseus aimed at his throat, then shot. The point pierced all the way through his soft neck. He flopped down to the side, and his cup slipped out of his hand, and then thick streams of blood gushed from his nostrils. His foot twitched and knocked the table down. Food scattered on the ground. The bread and roasted meat were soiled with blood. Seeing him fall, the suitors, in an uproar, with shouts that filled the hall, jumped up and rushed to search around by all the thick stone walls for shields or swords to grab, but there were none. They angrily rebuked Odysseus. "Stranger, you shot a man and you will pay. You will join no more games. You have to die. For certain, you have killed the best young man in all of Ithaca right here. The vultures will eat your corpse." Those poor fools did not know that he had killed Antinous on purpose, nor that the snares of death were round them all. Clever Odysseus scowled back and sneered, "Dogs, so you thought I would not come back home from Troy? And so you fleeced my house and raped my slave girls, and you flirted with my wife while I am still alive? You did not fear the gods who live in heaven, and you thought no man would ever come to take revenge. Now you are trapped inside the snares of death." At that, pale fear seized all of them. They groped to find a way to save their lives somehow. Only Eurymachus found words to answer. "If it is you, Odysseus, come back. Then we agree. Quite right. The Greeks have done outrageous things to your estate and home, but now the one responsible is dead. Antinous, it was all his idea. He did not even really want your wife, but had another plan, which Zeus had foiled, to lie in ambush for your son and kill him, then seize the throne and rule in Ithaca. Now he is slain, quite rightly. Please, my lord, have mercy on your people. We will pay in public, yes, for all the food and drink. We each will bring the price of 20 oxen and pay you all the gold and bronze you want. Your anger is quite understandable." Odysseus saw through him. With a glare, he told him, "Even if you give me all your whole inheritance, and even more, I will not keep my hands away from slaughter until I pay you suitors back for all your wickedness. You have two choices: fight or run away. Just try to save your lives. Not one of you will get away from death." At that, their knees grew weak. Their hearts stopped still. Eurymachus again addressed the suitors. "My friends, this man will not hold back his hands. Seizing the bow and arrows, he will shoot us right from that polished threshold till he kills each one of us. Be quick. Make plans for battle. Draw out your swords. Use tables as your shields against the deadly arrows. All together, rush at him. Try to drive him off the threshold and out of doors. Then run all through the town and quickly call for help. This man will soon have shot his last." He drew his sharp bronze sword, and with a dreadful scream he leapt at him. But that same instant, Lord Odysseus let fly and hit his chest beside the nipple, and instantly the arrow pierced his liver. The sword fell from his hand. He doubled up and fell across the table, spilling food and wine across the floor. He smashed his head against the ground, and in his desperate pain, kicked up the chair, and darkness drenched his eyes. Amphinomus attacked Odysseus. He drew his sharp sword, hoping he could force him to yield his place. Telemachus leapt in and thrust his bronze spear through him from behind, ramming it through his back and out his chest. Face first, he crashed and thudded to the ground. Telemachus dashed back. He left his spear stuck in the body. He was terrified that if he bent to pull it out, some Greek would jump on him and stab him with a sword. He ran and quickly reached his loyal father. He stood beside him, and his words flew out. "Now, father, I will fetch a shield for you and 2 spears and a helmet made of bronze, and I will arm myself and bring more arms for our 2 herdsmen, since we all need weapons." Odysseus, the master planner, answered, "Run fast, while I still have a stock of arrows, before they force me from the doors. I am fighting alone up here." His son obeyed. He hurried to the storeroom for the arms, and took 8 spears, 4 shields, and 4 bronze helmets, each fitted out with bushy horsehair plumes. He hurried back to take them to his father, and was the first to strap the armor on. The 2 slaves also armed themselves, and stood flanking their brilliant, resourceful leader. As long as he had arrows, he kept shooting, and one by one he picked the suitors off inside his own home. Then at last the king ran out of arrows. He set down his bow next to the sturdy doorpost, leaning up against the palace walls, all shining white. He slung the 4-fold shield across his shoulders and put the well-made helmet on his head. The crest of horsehair gave a fearsome nod. He grasped a bronze-tipped spear in either hand. There was a back gate in the castle walls, providing access to the passageway, with tightly fitted doors. Odysseus ordered the noble swineherd to stand there to guard it. There was only one way out. Achilles called out to the suitors, "Friends, one of us should slip out through that gate and quickly tell the people, raise alarms. That soon would put a stop to this man's shooting." Melanthius, the goatherd, answered, "No, my lord, that entryway is much too narrow and dangerously near the palace doors. One man, if he was brave, could keep it guarded against us all. So I'll bring you armor out of the storeroom, which I think is where those 2 our enemies have hidden it." Melanthius, the goatherd, climbed up past the arrow slits inside the castle walls into the chamber. There he took 12 shields, 12 spears, and 12 bronze helmets, each one crested with horsehair. Then he hurried back downstairs and handed all the weapons to the suitors. Odysseus could see that they had arms. Their spears were brandished. His heart stopped. His legs trembled. He was so shocked at their presumption. At once his words flew out to tell his son, "One of the women, or Melanthius, is waging war against us in my house." Wisely, Telemachus owned up at once. "Father, it was my fault. I am to blame. I left the heavy storeroom door open. Someone on their side must have kept good watch. Go there. Eumaeus, shut the door and see if any of the women are against us, or else, as I suspect, Melanthius." Meanwhile, Melanthius was going back to get more weapons from the room, and the swineherd saw him and told Odysseus, "My lord, that little sneak, the man we all suspected, is going to the stores. Odysseus, you always have a plan for what to do. So should I kill him, as I think is best, or bring him here to you? so you can punish as many crimes against you and your house. Odysseus already had a plan. Telemachus and I will keep the suitors trapped in the hall, however much they rage. You two, truss up his hands and feet behind him, drag him inside the storeroom, string him up, tying a knotted rope high in the column, and hoist him to the rafters. Torture him with hours of agony before he dies. His word was their command. They hurried off and reached the weaponry. Melanthius was unaware of them. As he was searching for arms, they stopped on each side of the door and waited. When he stepped across the threshold, holding a lovely helmet in one hand and in the other hand a rusty shield, once carried by Laertes in his youth, but now in storage, with its seams all loose, the two men jumped on him and grabbed his hair to drag him in and threw him on the floor, shaking with fear. They bound his hands and feet and yanked them painfully behind his back, just as the Lord of Suffering had told them. They tied him with a knotted rope and hoisted his body up the column to the rafters. Swineherd Eumaeus, you began to mock him. Keep watch the whole night through, Melanthius. Tucked up in this soft bed. It serves you right. And wait there for the golden throne of dawn, leaving the sea, that hour when you would lead your goats to this house for the suitors' dinner. There he was left, bound cruelly and stretched. The herdsmen armed themselves and left the room, shutting the door, and joined their cunning leader. They stood there on the threshold, tense with purpose, just 4 against so many men inside. The child of Zeus, Athena, came to meet them. Her voice and looks resembled those of Mentor. Odysseus was happy when he saw her and said, Remember our old friendship, Mentor? I've been good to you since we were boys, so help me now. He guessed it was Athena who rouses armies. From the hall, the suitors shouted their opposition. Agilus called, Mentor, do not let Odysseus sway you to help him and to fight against us. I think this is how things will go. When we have killed this father and his son, you will die also, if you do as you intend, and pay with your own life for all your plots. Our bronze will strip your life away from you, and we will seize whatever you may own and mix it with the loot we get from here. Your sons will not survive here in these halls, nor will your wife and daughters still walk free in Ithaca. At that, Athena's heart became enraged, and angrily she scolded Odysseus. Where is your courage now? You fought 9 years on end against the Trojans for white-armed Helen, Zeus's favorite child. You slaughtered many men when war was raging and formed the plan that made the city fall. Now, you're home at last. How can you flinch from being brave and using proper force against these suitors? Come now, stand by me and watch how Mentor, son of Alcimus, will treat your enemies as recompense for all your service. But she did not grant decisive victory. She kept on testing Odysseus's courage and his sons. She flew up like a swallow through the smoke and nestled in the rafters of the roof. Now Agelus, Demoptimalus, Eurynomus, Pisander, Amphimedon, and Polybus were urging on the suitors. Those were the most heroic of the group who still survived and battled for their lives. The others were defeated by the bow and raining arrows. Agelus told them, that Mentor's boasts were empty, friends. He left, and now they're all alone at the entrance. Now force this cruel man to stay his hands. Do not hurl spears at him all in a mass. But you 6 must shoot first, and pray Lord Zeus will strike Odysseus and win the fight. Once he is down, the others will be nothing. The 6 men threw their spears as he had said. At once Athena made their efforts fail. One pierced the doorpost of the palace hall. Another hit the closely fitted door. Another's spear of ash and heavy bronze fell on the wall. The group of four avoided all the suitors' spears. Odysseus had waited long enough. "My friends," he said, "they want to slaughter us and strip our arms. Avenge my former wrongs and save your lives. Now, shoot." They hurled their spears at once and hit. Odysseus killed Demoptylus, Telemachus, Eurydice. The swineherd slaughtered Elatus, and the cowherd killed Pisander. They all fell and hit the earth. The other suitors huddled in a corner. The four rushed up and from the corpses pulled their spears. Again, the suitors threw their weapons. Again, Athena made them fail. One spear struck at the doorpost and another pierced the door. Another ash spear hit the wall. Amphidamon's blow grazed Telemachus right by the wrist. The bronze tore through the skin. Ctesippus hurled his spear. It only scratched the swineherd's shoulder, just above his shield, flew past and fell down on the floor behind him. The competent, sharp-eyed Odysseus and his companions hurled their piercing spears into the swarming throng. The city sacker skewered Eurydamus. Telemachus slashed Amphidamon, and the swineherd struck at Polybus. The cowherd sliced right through Ctesippus's chest and crowed, "You fool! You loved insulting us. Now you've stopped your boasting. The gods have got the last word. They've won. This is a gift to pay you for that kick you gave Odysseus when he walked through his own house as a homeless man in need." Odysseus moved closer with his spear and pierced Agelus. Telemachus thrust at Leocritus and drove his bronze into his belly. He fell down head first, face smashed against the floor. Then from the roof, Athena lifted high her deadly aegis. The frightened suitors bolted through the hall like cattle roused and driven by a gadfly in springtime, when the days are getting longer. As vultures with their crooked beaks and talons swoop from the hills and pounce on smaller birds that fly across the fields beneath the clouds, the victims have no help and no way out, as their attackers slaughter them and men watch and enjoy the violence. So these four fighters sprang and struck and drove the suitors in all directions. Screaming filled the hall as skulls were cracked. The whole floor ran with blood. Leodes darted up to supplicate Odysseus. He touched his knees. "Please, mercy, I did no wrong. I swear in word or deed to any of the women in the house. I tried to stop the suitors, tried to urge them to keep their hands clean, but they would not listen. Those fools deserve their fate, but I did nothing. I am a priest, yet I must lie with them. Will good behavior go unrewarded?" The calculating hero scowled at him. "If, as you claim, you sacrificed for them, you must have often prayed here in my hall, that I would not regain the joys of home, and that my wife would marry you instead and bear your children. You will not escape. Suffer and die." Agelus dropped his sword when he was killed. With his strong arm, Odysseus swung, slashed down, and sliced right through the priest's neck, and his head, still framing words, rolled in the dust. The poet Phemius, who'd been forced to sing to please the suitors, was huddled by the back door with his lyre, anxiously considering his choices. To slip outside and crouch beneath the altar of mighty Zeus, the god of homeowners, where his old masters burned so many thigh bones? Or could he run towards Odysseus and grasp him by the knees and beg for mercy? He made his mind up. He would supplicate. He set his hollow lyre on the ground between the mixing bowl and silver chair and dashed to take Odysseus's knees, beseeching him in quivering, winged words. "I beg you, Lord Odysseus, have mercy. Think, if you kill me now, you will be sorry. I have the power to sing for gods and men. I am self-taught. All kinds of song are planted by gods inside my heart. I'm prepared to sing for you as if before a god. Wait, Do not cut my throat. Just ask your son. He will explain. It was against my will that I came here to sing to them after dinner. They were too fierce, and they outnumbered me. I had no choice." Then strong Telemachus turned quickly to his father, saying, "Stop. Hold up your sword. This man is innocent. Let us also save the houseboy, Medon. He always cared for me when I was young, unless the herdsmen have already killed him, or he already met you in your rage." Medon was sensible. He'd been hiding under a chair beneath the fresh cowhide in order to escape from being killed. Hearing these words, he jumped up from the chair, took off the cowhide, and assumed the pose of supplication near Telemachus and said, "Friend, here I am. Please spare my life. Your father is too strong and furious against the suitors who skimmed off his wealth and failed to honor you. Please talk to him." Canny Odysseus smiled down and said, "You need not worry. He has saved your life. So live and spread the word that doing good is far superior to wickedness. Now leave the hall and go outside. Sit down, joining the famous singer in the courtyard, so I can finish what I have to do inside my house." The two men went outside and crouched by Zeus's altar, on the lookout for death at any moment all around. Odysseus scanned all around his home for any man who might still be alive, who might be hiding to escape destruction. He saw them fallen, all of them, so many, lying in blood and dust, like fish hauled up out of the dark gray sea in fine mesh nets, tipped out upon the curving beach's sand. They gasp for water from the salty sea. So lay the suitors, heaped across each other. Odysseus, still scheming, told his son, "I need to say something to Eurycleia. Hurry, Telemachus, and bring her here." Telemachus was glad to please his father. He pushed the door ajar and called the nurse. "Nanny, come quick. You have been here for years. You supervise the female palace slaves. My father has to talk to you. Come on." She had no words to answer him, but opened the doors into the great and sturdy hall. Telemachus went first and led the way. Among the corpses of the slaughtered men, she saw Odysseus all smeared with blood. After a lion eats a grazing ox, its chest and jowls are thick with blood all over, a dreadful sight. Just so, Odysseus had blood all over him, from hands to feet. Seeing the corpses, seeing all that blood, so great a deed of violence, she began to crow. Odysseus told her to stop and spoke with fluent words. "Old woman, no. Be glad inside your heart, but do not shout. It is not pious, gloating over men who have been killed. Divine fate took them down, and their own wicked deeds. They disrespected all people that they met, both bad and good. Through their own crimes, they came to this bad end. But tell me now about the household women. Which ones dishonor me, and which are pure?" The slave who loved her master answered, "Child, I'll tell you exactly how things stand. In this house, we have 50 female slaves, whom we have trained to work, to card the wool, and taught to tolerate their life as slaves. 12 stepped away from honor. Those 12 girls ignore me, and Penelope, our mistress. She would not let Telemachus instruct them, since he is young and only just grown up. Let me go upstairs to the women's room to tell your wife some god has sent her sleep." The master strategist, Odysseus, said, "Not yet. Do not wake her. Call the women who made those treasonous plots while I was gone." The old nurse did so. Walking through the hall, she called the girls. Meanwhile, Odysseus summoned the herdsmen and Telemachus and spoke winged words to them. "Now we must start to clear the corpses out. The girls must help. Then clean my stately chairs and handsome tables with sponges fine as honeycomb and water. When the whole house is set in proper order, restore my halls to health. Take out the girls between the courtyard wall and the rotunda. Hack at them with long swords, eradicate all life from them. They will forget the things the suitors made them do with them in secret through Aphrodite. Sobbing desperately, the girls came, weeping, clutching at each other. They carried out the bodies of the dead, piled them on top of one another under the roof outside. Odysseus instructed them and forced them to continue. Then they cleaned his lovely chairs and tables with wet, absorbent sponges, while the prince and herdsmen, with their shovels, scraped away the mess to make the sturdy floor all clean. The girls picked up the trash and took it out. The men created order in the house and set it all to rights, then led the girls outside and trapped them. They could not escape between the courtyard wall and the rotunda. Showing initiative, Telemachus insisted, "I refuse to grant these girls a clean death, since they poured down shame on me and mother when they lay beside the suitors." At that, he wound a piece of sailor's rope round the rotunda and round the mighty pillar, stretched up so high no foot could touch the ground. As doves or thrushes spread their wings to fly home to their nests, but someone sets a trap, they crash into a net, a bitter bedtime. Just so, the girls, their heads, all in a row, were strung up with the noose around their necks to make their death an agony. They gasped, feet twitching for a while, but not for long. Then the men took Melanthius outside, and with curved bronze cut off his nose and ears and ripped away his genitals to feed raw to the dogs. Still full of rage, they chopped his hands and feet off. Then they washed their own and they went back inside. Odysseus told his beloved nurse, "Now bring me fire and sulfur as a cure for evil things, and I will fumigate the house, and call Penelope, her slaves, and all the slave girls inside the house." She answered with affection, "Yes, dear, all this is good, but let me bring a cloak and shirt for you. You should not stand there, your strong back covered only with those rags. That would be wrong." Odysseus, the master of every cunning scheme, replied, "No. First, I need a fire here to smoke the hall." His loving slave complied, brought the fire and sulfur, and Odysseus made smoke and fumigated every room inside the house and yard. Meanwhile, the old nurse ran all through the palace, summoning the women. By torchlight, they came out from their apartments to greet Odysseus with open arms. They kissed his face and took him by the hands in welcome. He was seized by sweet desire to weep, and in his heart he knew them all.